Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup all reporting tomorrow. Other key financial earnings are going to be coming out as well on Wednesday. Let's bring in Entrepreneurs Share CEO Joel Schulman. Joel, so hey, good morning to you. I've given you a laundry list of things to go through. What's most important to you on your radar this morning?
Well, we've got bank earnings starting tomorrow, and we've got CPI coming out. That's going to certainly drive this week. We're looking at next week with the Mag 7 starting to come out, and then the following 2 weeks. So next week and the following week, earnings are going to be driving it. We've got to remember revenue per employee has been rising from less than half of $500,000 per employee, less than $500,000 per employee, to now over $650. So we're looking at that. Many of the companies we're adding in our portfolio, we're now moving to private markets in our ETF, the XOVR. So we're looking at private markets like Kalshi and prediction markets. We think it's going to be a good run. Interesting
that you're the second guest that's mentioned that. Tiana Ledesher, jump in here. We're looking at the CPI estimates for tomorrow for June. We're looking at a decline of 0.1% month over month, a gain of 3.8% year over year. But this inflation story, we've had several guests comment today that inflation is the story, and it's going to be on deck tomorrow.
Yeah.
We know it's what voters care about, but Kevin Warsh, he doesn't want to project too much, but he did say that as the Iran conflict seems like there may be some way out, that inflation should be resolving fundamentally, right? Because this is sort of limited to the supply shock, right, rather than underlying demand push inflation. But how much do you think that productivity here, because you're talking about the worker profit, could productivity be a big story in bringing down inflation? Because that's been Kevin Warsh's big gamble.
Right. Yeah, I 100% agree. Revenue per employee has really been the driver, and earnings. We've had record earnings throughout this year. We're expecting more record earnings this quarter. Companies that miss or just barely beat are going to get punished badly because there's high expectations. But when you look at the companies growing year after year, expanding margins, expanding revenue growth, and driving down costs, this has been the big driver. So the earnings have to project. The earnings are going to have to carry this because we're not going to have as you point out, we're not going to have the Fed lift. The Fed's not going to bail us out. In fact, if anything, there's talk about maybe they increase by year end. I don't believe so. I think they're going to hold steady. But it's got to be all earnings and all expansion, and it's not going to be evenly distributed. Tech. Some of the tech are going to do better than the others.
Interesting that you say that. And Greg Frignello will jump in here because obviously the consumer is going to be a big focus. We heard that earlier in the program from Sean O'Hara, that when the banks come out, it's all about the consumer. And you agree with that sentiment?
I do. Right. And earnings certainly clear right here. The interest rate story, in my view, is not a problem. If you look at where formal rates are at right now, and if you look at where rates have been historically, we're well within the norms. So that's not the issue. Yeah. So it is about the consumer. It is about the economy, and we're still constructive on the economy in general.
There you go. There you go. And also semiconductor stocks are under pressure this morning. Let's take a look at these because, we had this big IPO from SK Hynix on Friday, and that obviously was a big market event. Now looking at the chips makers today, you're seeing everyone down across the board in the pre-market, and SK Hynix actually, pulled back as well. Biggest foreign listing we've ever had. Your thoughts?
Well, we've got to remember that companies like Micron have gone up, more than 100%. I mean, they soared in the last few months. So they've gotten a little frothy. They perhaps got ahead of themselves. We're seeing some of that scale back right now. There are other pockets we believe are stronger in terms of these markets. Again, the tech, not all tech has appreciated quite a bit. Mag 7 had been down there 11% off from the S&P 500. So, some of the mega caps have trailed the others. So we're going to see an interesting shift starting next week. And again, we think private markets are a good place to be if you can get them.
Well, no, you're talking about Kalshi once again. You're talking about that Kalshi runs the CFTC regulated exchange. Right. And, this is event contracts. I mean, I think that's an interesting focus. You're saying that's where the money is going to start to chase. The next thing that the cash on the sidelines is going to chase.
Yeah, well, with our XOVR ETF, we actually raised a lot of money in the last year or so with SpaceX. And now we're moving into other privates. In fact, we'll have an announcement coming out this morning. But Kalshi is going to be a big, big push for us now. We see a lot of growth in these areas. We see strong growth, strong, profits potentially coming out of these types of companies, and we see privates in general. Built up demand among the consumers that the investors who want to get into some of these markets. We see trying to get in.
No, I agree. It's been a fascinating growth story, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to take a look at oil with you before you go, because we did
Right.
have all these new strikes over the weekend. The U.S. struck hundreds of Iranian targets over the weekend. Iran retaliated, but they went after our Gulf allies. And President Trump did order a wave of drones after Tehran targeted ships in the Strait. The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Michael Waltz, told Maria yesterday that the waterway is open and is under control. Joel, I want to get your reaction to that, because this continues to drive the domestic energy story.
Right, it does, and certainly oil is part of the flywheel that increases, inflation. Inflation increases interest rates. But I think the market has largely priced a lot of this in. We see, one day good news, one day bad news, one day we have peace, one day we don't. I think the market's priced it in. I mean, I think people generally understand that our government's taking control. They're doing the best thing for us long term, and I think as long as people recognize that long term we're going to be okay. Oil prices now in the 70s is a lot better than what we had a few months ago. If that thing settles down, if oil settles down, which many people are pricing in, again, I think it's going to be mostly earnings. This earnings season is going to focus on that, less so oil.
And we're off to the races tomorrow. Joel Schulman, it's always great to have you on the program. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Cheryl.
All right, we'll be right back, everybody. Stay with us.